wage their battle to destroy the evil forces of the Decepticons, the Transformers. The Transformers.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another exciting edition of Transformers Reviews. Well, today, guys, we're going to be taking a look at, is it this guy, or should I say these guys? It's so confusing. But I can tell you what exactly we're going to be looking at is we're going to be looking at the standard retail release of Optimal Optimus, which basically just means the one in his appropriate Season 3 colors to match this. So, anyway, you've seen whenever we went ahead and did the SDCC version, but today I'm not going to rehash a lot of that. I just want to show you some of the differences between this and the two other iterations that we have here on the table. So to start off, we're going to look at what is supposed to homage his Season 1 appearance. Let's go ahead and get right to that. Okay, just so you guys know which is which, this one right here is the standard release. Well, this is the SDCC version, which I will refer to as the SD version because it's just simpler. So, to let you guys know, he does not come with this sword. He does come with two guns, like the SD version, but I just gave him a sword for simply variety's sake. Now, one thing that I do want to go ahead and mention is if you look up here in the arms and right up here above where the white area of the legs are, you'll notice that the standard release is actually cast in a darker gray plastic than this one is. The same goes for his gun. It's that same similar dark plastic. Now, over here, the SD's versions are actually cast in the black plastic but painted silver. But something else that I noticed, but you can see again here, this is actually cast in the same dark gray plastic that we saw earlier, whereas this, like the guns, is actually cast in the black plastic over here. Sorry, my hand was in the way. I apologize for that. But I want to show you, here's the difference in the stickers. You can see, again, here's the SD version. I mean, it's a great figure. I love the little Cybertronian ship mode that later converts to a hoverboard. And we aren't going to look at that because you've already seen that. So without further ado, let's look at this guy in his beast mode. Now, one thing I do want to go ahead and mention is as far as representing the beast mode for Season 3, this one, especially with the gorilla face, if you look at that, that is just spot on for the CG model. I mean, that is just, the beast mode does amazing. So one of the things that I wanted to go ahead and explain as far as difference-wise is you'll notice that the leg configuration is different. It more matches the 1990s release of Optimal Optimus as opposed to how the instructions say that. Now, the reason that I believe this is an improvement is if you notice the SD version over here is hunkered over. That being the difference in how obviously the legs are positioned, because with the legs collapsed on the SD version and this being attached so close to the back, it forces him to be hunkered over. Whereas if you have the legs in the more 90s configuration, he can actually stand more straight up and not be as hunkered over. So basically, I like this look a little bit better because it looks a little more natural as opposed to the actual instructions configuration, because it looks exactly like what it is. The legs are just collapsed up, basically. So if you look at the old boy over here, you can actually see that his cannons are actually quite a bit taller. Now this is more show accurate. It's not completely accurate, but it is a little bit more show accurate as far as the height is concerned. Now, if you look over here on how the instructions tell you how to do this figure, you'll see that they are quite a bit shorter, and that is because they actually plug in right here above the other primal body on the back. And I don't like how short that is. So what I did is instead I went ahead and plugged in the cannons later on to what will be his Optimal Optimus robot mode chest, because it actually helps it to match the height of the original 90s version. So, other than that, you know what's cool about some of the figures from the 90s? Flip down features like, like that, which I thought was kind of cool. You're asking, why am I showing you that on the old guy? Well, because if you see over here on the SDC version, I actually managed to make him look quite like the other one. Basically what you do is you take the guns, and instead of plugging them in long ways like this, you just plug them into those same spots and with the guns fraying forward, and now you can homage this little feature. One thing that I wish they would have done for the new release is something that they actually did back in the 90s for all the Transmetals. They would actually put their names on them. And I know that's weird because that wasn't that way in the show, but it would have been a nice little homage had they done something like that for this Optimus. Let's go ahead and let's take a look at his other modes. And we have Optimus and his Auto. Oh no, wait, that's Cyclonus. My bad. Anyway, obviously, as you can tell, it's a Cybertronian jet. Now, the differences between this and the way this one is set up is basically what they do for the official deal is they actually have the jet canopy sit up a little bit higher, and the cannons are actually placed where you saw them in beast mode. Now again, to match his more on-screen accurate appearance, like this guy over here, I actually have them plugged into where I did in beast mode, and the jet canopy actually sits a little bit lower, again, just to help it be more accurate. In reference to that, you can see that is actually the way that these are right here, because you see that they molded in the 3 jet boosters for his feet on this version. Well, on the new versions, they only have the ones back here in the heels. However, in the show, he actually had his feet flat like this to use those boosters to help propel him along. So again, that's why I actually have the standard release in the same configuration. The actual instructions have you point the feet backwards where they can actually hook onto the optimal body, which is okay, but the thing is it doesn't offer all that much stability. You can do it just like this, and you don't have to worry about the legs dropping or drooping or anything like that. One thing I want to go ahead and quickly mention is the fact that this original Optimus has 4 modes, one of them actually being a Cybertronian tank mode. However, as these guys do not have that mode, I will not show it to you because it's actually physically impossible. That's why I skipped over the hoverboard mode, is because the optimal form actually does not have that. That's a reference to his Transmetal 1 form. Just wanted to let you guys know that, and now we will move on to robot mode. So here we have Optimal Optimus in robot mode. And I gotta say, guys, that one of the great things about this figure is if you can look at it, I mean, you look at it from basically head to toe, just the amazing amount of detailing seems to pop more because of the colors that he has. Now, one thing I do want to go ahead and mention is the differences between him and the SD version. Again, they're only aesthetic. The main difference being decals like you saw at the beginning of the video. However, you can see this is actually supposed to be the matrix that was actually inside of Optimus Prime. And the reason that actually the SD's version is red is because, again, they're trying to homage more of this color scheme from a Season 1 body. So again, that's why actually when you look at his is actually red. So you can see, just like the old man, here he actually has his chest guns out. Now what you can actually do is you can actually make it look like they've retracted, so when we look at that, it looks something like this. Now the one thing about those guns is, like on the SD version, you can actually combine them to look something like this, which basically what that is referencing and homaging is the gun that came with the original one, which, as you can see, they look nothing alike, whatever. Final thoughts on Optimal Optimus. He, like I've mentioned in other videos, he is my absolute favorite. This is my absolute favorite form of his. And just to have, again, a updated and more refined version of him, I really like. That has been the review of Transformers Power of the Prime's Optimal Optimus. And until next time, guys, we'll see you in another review. I bet you thought it was over, didn't you? Well, you know what? We got a few seconds here, so I want to show you something a little bit unique. But you can actually take the SD crown from the other figure, and if you just happen to wonder what it would look like on this Optimus, there you have it. Now the video is actually over.